Hi, how's everyone doing? Did you recognize yourself in any of those photos? Yeah, thanks for submitting those. It's through those submissions that we actually get to have them up there. So welcome to your last lecture. My name is Shannon Thibodeau. I work here on campus in the Department of Student Experience, and we're really happy that you're with us tonight. As we begin the evening, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that this main campus of the University of Guelph resides on the ancestral lands of the Adirondacks people. And it's also the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. And here in the work that we do, we recognize the significance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant to this land, and we offer our respects to the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Métis people as we continue to strive to strengthen our relationships with them. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, many Métis and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging them reminds us of our important connection to the land where we have been working and learning together. So it's in that spirit that I welcome you today. So welcome to students, faculty, senior administrators, friends and family, community members, and alumni who have gathered, and also to those watching. So if everyone can turn around and just wave up at the camera in the far corner of the balcony. We do have this on the uoguelph.ca homepage, so if there's somebody who can't watch it right now because they're on a semester abroad, or they're a family member or friend who's away, they can actually watch it later. Wherever you are in the world, we are really glad that you're here. And a particularly special welcome to those of you graduating this year, the class of 2019. So, before we get the ball really rolling with our lectures and we explain how everything works, I want to introduce you to somebody who's going to do a welcome on behalf of the university, and this is the person whose job it is to help think about and create, the path that got you to this point, the courses you took, the curriculum that was there. So from your last lecture to this, your last lecture, this person's had some influence. So to officially welcome you is our Provost and Vice President Academic, Dr. Scarlett Yates.
Wow, what a great crowd. And I'm sure you're here just on the verge of hearing your last lecture and starting your first exam. For many of you, the first of the last exams, which is always a great relief, if I remember correctly, many years ago when I was in your shoes. Sorry, I'm a little taller than you, Shannon. So I'm Scarlett Yates, and I have the great pleasure of being the Vice President Academic and Provost at the University of Guelph. And I'd like to welcome members of the senior administration, faculty, staff who are here, and of course, most wonderfully, students, both those of you who are in year and those who in a matter of days will be celebrating that this is your graduating experience. So I found it curious when I first came here a few years ago, what was this last lecture? I'd never heard about it before, and when I arrived and came to my first one, I thought, what a wonderful tradition. So for those of you who've been here before, and for those of you who it is a new experience, the last lecture is intended to allow you to reflect on your experiences, your achievements here at the University of Guelph, to celebrate your own and your peers' successes and challenges and boring lectures and exciting lectures, of which I'm sure you've had both. And of course, it's a time to celebrate and listen to your faculty and listen to that last lecture. So of course, you choose a faculty member who you want to hear from. And tonight, I know from experience, you're in for a treat. And of course, you're in for a treat from one of our alumni as well. So that person who you may become in the future will also share with you some words. And finally, one of the students will also offer her reflections. And for her, so she's got to get through giving her first, maybe, and last lecture before she starts her exams. She's been well tutored, though, I understand, and mentored by Professor Dixon. So, one of the things about this moment is it allows you, it's a little hard to absorb when you think you've been here, you started on a journey, and now, before you know it, you're actually ending a piece of that journey. And reflecting on what you've learned, how much you've changed. I'm imagining that as you walked up here, you think about the first day you walked into War Memorial Hall. What was this place? What You were going to be in a lecture with hundreds of other students. Did you know anything? Were you going to be successful? Were you going to fail? It's nerve-wracking, and now you walk in here completely confident. You know it can be cold in winter in this place. It's uncomfortable seats. And at the same time, you've been here for many lectures and you've learned so much. So it's time to celebrate that, but also explore that and think, what have I learned? I've met new friends, I've learned new skills, I've got a whole new body of knowledge, and in a short 4 years. And it is remarkable how much you achieve. And I hope that with your education, you've learned about the world around you. Often we don't know as much as we think about it, and then we come to university and wow, we learn a lot of things from our professors, but also from our fellow students, from our TAs, from the staff. And so hopefully your view of the world has been broadened, and also you've helped broaden our view of the world. And you arrived here as students, but for many of you will leave as scholars. You have a new body of knowledge, new bundle of skills which you're ready to offer to the world, whether through grad school, through a profession, or through work. You've learned, I hope, about critical thinking. You've learned about creative thinking. I hope you've learned how to disagree and not scream at each other. I hope you've learned to discuss, debate, to have different opinions, to be able to find evidence of those opinions. Moreover, I think as you step into this next role, you will be able to use and marshal that knowledge, those skills, as you move forward, and that you'll be able to learn and build on those skills, but also use them for your next successes. What's exciting about what awaits you is that as you've all been together from different disciplines, you'll learn that the world values those people who think outside the box, who think not just in that narrow way, but in big ways. And they learn to transfer what they've learned here into another part of the world. So I hope that through all this, you've not only learned something and some ideas, but more about yourself and about your community and about your sense of direction where you want to go. And of course, I hope that you've learned that learning is an amazing experience. I think being a professor, being a provost, is one of the most amazing jobs in the world because I believe that universities have such a transformative impact. You impact me every day. I am so lucky to be surrounded by thousands of young people who've got new ideas, who challenge, who are creative. So, as you listen to your last lectures from three very important people, I hope that you're going to enjoy this moment, celebrate that you've gone from student to scholar, and of course, also Griffin. For while you're a student for a very short time, you're a Griffin forever, and we will always welcome you back. We'll always want to see you and hear about your successes. So on that note, I want to say I can't wait to hear the three lectures, but congratulations, all of you. Enjoy, and good luck in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yates. As was mentioned, we started this a number of years ago, and by number I mean 18. So that was like, what grade were you in then? I don't know. Kindergarten? Anyone? What, not yet, maybe? I'm getting like nods and shakes. So it was a while ago. And it really did start with the purpose of celebrating you, the graduating student. We wanted to give you an opportunity to get together, not in alphabetical order. We reserve that for convocation, which is also a very special experience. But to sit with the people that have meaning to you, to sit with the people you've shared memories with, and to celebrate. Because this is a remarkable achievement to be at this place. And so the program for this evening is pretty straightforward. You're going to hear from 3 different members of our Griffin community, and they're all going to speak on this theme of reflect, celebrate, and be inspired. One is an address from a classmate of yours who's just on that cusp of earning their degree as well. Another is by one of our stellar faculty members. And finally, we're going to have an address from a special member of our alumni family. Afterwards, if you don't have a 7 p.m. class to run off to one more time, there's a celebratory reception downstairs, just below here in War Memorial, and also the coveted free food. which, let me tell you, stops existing in the same way when you leave university. So you might want to get it one more time. So this evening, let's see if I got that right. I did. We have a student lecturer. Every year, graduating students apply to be the lecturer, and I'm not just saying this when I say it's always a really difficult decision, and this year, I can look at members of the committee and they can nod and say, yes, it was particularly difficult because frankly, so many of you are really fantastic. And so for all of you who took the time to submit an application and present to us, thank you. It was really great to hear from you. But like many things, there can only be one. And so we're pretty happy with the student who will be presenting to you this evening. This year's last lecturer has developed a love for the campus community. They kind of get the Guelphiness of Guelph. And when they're not in class studying for their soon-to-be completed, can almost taste it, degree in environmental governance, they've been really busy, involved in Interhall Council, moving through the organization to the current position of president. They've also been a part of their academic program club. They've represented students on committees and boards. They've been doing education campaigns. Basically, they have a lot of energy, and they've been using it to contribute back to the community and to learn. If there's one thing that was confirmed in their letters of support, it's that they do have energy, but along with that energy, they've also got the ability to encourage others, to ask really good questions, and to listen. And so I'm so pleased to invite to the stage this year's student last lecturer, Jaden. So this is now forward. Okay.
Fantastic. I'm gonna move the Kleenex. I don't want to use the Kleenex, I promise. Hello, everyone. My name is Jaden Wolosachek, and I am honored to be standing before you today as the 2019 Student Last Lecturer. I'm very honored to have been selected, and I want to begin by taking a second to acknowledge the other students who applied for this. You're fantastic, and I hope I do you proud. Tonight, I'm going to share with you all pieces and stories of my journey through the University of Guelph, as well as 3 key lessons that I've learned through this 4 years here on this beautiful campus. You may be asking why 3? Well, 2 was too little and 4 was too many, so I referred back to Goldilocks and I decided to settle on 3. My journey to and through the University of Guelph was a little bit different than most people in this room because I'm from a small farm in rural Manitoba. There we are. The closest university in my hometown that I even applied to was about a 12-hour drive away. Needless to say, I did not tour any universities in the 12th grade. It left me in a bit of a weird place though, because I had to select a university solely based on the photos from a lookbook and a website. And in the case of Guelph, a very handy YouTube channel that they've posted. It made it feel like I was actually walking into the halls of Johnston itself. What a beautiful view. The trees and the buildings came alive on the pages of the lookbook and website, and they were only enhanced by phrases like best campus food in Canada and one of Canada's top comprehensive universities. 4 years later, and I absolutely agree with both of those statements. Like most people, though, I did not end up living in Johnston Hall in my first year. I applied to live in South, actually, but for a bit of an embarrassing reason. Since I'd never been to Guelph or applied to university, or to live in residence, you could say I really didn't know what I was doing. So when I saw the names Prairie, Mountain, and Maritime, I thought to myself, Guelph is so nice. They even have residences for students from other provinces. So I sent in my application to live in Prairie Hall. Because that's where I thought us prairie kids were meant to be. I promise, this thinking made a lot of sense to 17-year-old Jaden. And it actually kind of still makes sense now. I'm not gonna wander on that for too long, but I have yet to meet another person from the prairies who had the same line of thinking, so. I guess you could say the first lesson of university was one that I learned pretty early on. Do your research. Things did work out for the best, though. I had great roommates, met fantastic friends, and found a community through Interhall Council. The lesson of doing our research is something that's probably been ingrained in us since our first year, whether it was group projects, independent research papers, or now even looking into what we want to do in the future, whether it's a master's program or med school, vet school, law school, you name it, even applying and going out into the real world and getting jobs and leaving academia. But don't take this lesson of do your research too seriously. Sometimes it's important to go with our gut and to trust that things are going to work out. I mean, it did for me living in South. The second lesson I have is one that I'm still learning, and it's things don't always go as planned. Can I get a hands up for people in the room who may have switched majors or programs or colleges throughout your degree here? Oh yeah, so I'm not feeling so alone here. I actually came to the University of Guelph specifically to study in the Bachelor of Arts and Sciences. By the end of my first year, I'd switched into a Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Governance. But my inspiration for switching was a little bit deeper than just not liking my program or not being happy in it. You see, I spent the last half of my childhood living on my small family farm with my dad and my two sisters. This was after my parents had split up and my mom stayed back in Alberta while we went to the farm in Manitoba. My family means the world to me, and my dad has been my inspiration since I can remember. Around 5 weeks into university, I got the call that I'd been fearing my entire life. The call was from my mom, telling me that my dad had suffered a potentially fatal stroke and that she was booking a flight for me that night to come home because they weren't sure if he would see the morning. I was 18, alone, and indescribably afraid. I'm thankful for the friends who were by me that day, especially for the one who slept on my floor so I wouldn't be alone and so that I'd wake up for my 4 a.m. flight. I returned to Manitoba the next morning to be with my family. We were lucky. My dad had stabilized throughout the night, but he had a long road to recovery. He could hardly speak when I got home or control any of his muscles. The hardest thing that I've had to do in university is not write papers or work together in a group, but it was watch my dad in that hospital. My sisters and I needed to be strong for him though, and we were. I'd even brought home with me one of those University of Guelph dad mugs and one of those little monkeys that had a shirt that said "Someone from the University of Guelph loves me" on it. I am happy to say that my dad's in his best health ever now, and he also keeps the mug and monkey on his bedside table at home. Watching my support system almost disappear from my life altogether opened my eyes as to why I was at university in the first place. To learn what I loved and to gain the skills to make a difference for people like my dad, for farmers and for people whose living relies on the environment and natural resources. So I made the choice to switch into environmental governance at the end of that year. This life-altering experience with my dad and my academics taught me that while things may not go as planned, they do work themselves out eventually. Speaking of not going as planned, I do have a second story of things not quite going how I thought they would. This lesson is a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be, so you're going to have to bear with me for this story. It's a good one, I promise. One of my favorite memories of my University of Guelph experience has to be this past year during orientation week. I was fortunate in this particular situation of mine that, like many of my embarrassing moments in undergrad, it was very well documented in photographs. The story begins with a phone call where I was asked if I would like to flip the coin at the football team's home opening game during O Week. I was very excited. People have always told me I have a really expressive face, but I didn't actually understand what they meant until I saw this picture, and the one I'm going to show you after. So I've always wanted to be the person who flips the coin at a football game. It's a little weird, but I promise, CFL is a really big deal in rural Manitoba. It's pretty massive there. What I want you to do before I get too far into this is pay attention to the man in the gray hat next to the ref. He plays a key role in this story. So at the time this picture was taken, I had been walked through the steps. The ref had given me some tips, to practice. That way I wouldn't mess it up or drop the coin. They'd announced that I was going to be the one flipping the coin on the speakers, so everyone was there, and I was very excited. Moments after this photo was taken, though, Mr. Gray Hat grabbed the coin and he flipped it. I stood there, shocked and confused, and yeah, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think that does that phrase very good justice. So while I may not have gotten to fulfill my sports dream of flipping the coin at a football game, I came away from this with 2 really good pictures and an awesome bitter story that I can tell for a really long time. So I think that may actually be better than having flipped the coin in the first place. It was difficult for me to place and number all of these lessons I'm sharing with you tonight because, well, as a middle child, I wanted to put the most important lesson second. But the third lesson does build off of the second one, and it may be the most important lesson that speaks to what it's like to go to the University of Guelph and be a part of this community that I love so much. I believe in the power of storytelling, so I do have one more for you. In my second year, I was going to turn it around academically. I was going to be more outgoing, get better grades, and be the best Mountain Hall president there'd ever been. 2 weeks into the semester, I became an early example of the avocado hand trend. If you'd have ever told me that Meryl Streep and I had something in common other than being blonde, female, and human, I would not have believed you. But her and I, like many others, had accidents involving knives, avocados, and a lack of common sense. I may or may not have needed 3 stitches in my hand, and I may or may not have permanently damaged the tendon and nerves in that hand as well. It seriously impacted my ability to do a lot of everyday things, and it slowed me down quite a bit. Try typing an essay without half of your hand working. It was really tough. While dealing with the physical pain of my hand taking its sweet, sweet time to heal, I went through another emotional tragedy. One of my grandfathers on my dad's side passed away from pancreatic cancer that October. I didn't have the chance to say goodbye to him, and it really took its toll on my mental health. And then I re-injured my knee from a high school basketball injury and spent the entire month of November on crutches with my hardly functioning hand. I thought things were bad in first year. So at this point, I'm grieving, I'm post-hand and avocado injury, and I'm on crutches in South. My second year was the most challenging by far, but it was also the most rewarding year for me. The students in Mountain Hall that year, they were incredible. From their spirit in pep rally to their willingness to support one another, it really pushed me through that year. As Inter-Hall Council, it's a part of our role to create a community on campus, as well as in residence. It's our job to create a home and make students feel safe and welcomed in the place that's going to be their home away from home in their first year. I came into the year believing that I was going to be the one that did that for the students. But it was actually them who supported me. They may not know it, but they were the best thing that happened to me that year. They became the family I never knew I needed and the support that I was in desperate need of. The support of Mountain students, in addition to the incredible friends that I've met at the University of Guelph, has made this story worth telling. The friends I've made here have pushed me out of my comfort zone more times than I can count. They've taught me to have new perspectives and to challenge my thinking, and they've shown me endless amounts of support. They're also a large part of the resiliency that I was able to build while a student here. My friends became my family, and the thing that I'm going to miss most about this place. They are my home. And that, folks, is the third and final lesson of tonight. Home isn't always a place. A lot of the time, it's the people we surround ourselves with. My second year taught me that while things may be difficult, feelings are exhausting, and life gets overwhelming, it's important to recognize that the way that we react to the situations we're in is going to determine those outcomes for us. I made the choice to push ahead and to reach out to the supports that I had when I needed them, and it made a world of difference for me. I learned how to be vulnerable and how to ask for help, which is something I'm still working on, but it's a lesson I'll keep learning. See, the beautiful thing about the University of Guelph is that for many of us, it felt like home the second we stepped foot on campus. So in an effort to stay true to my first lesson, I did a little bit of research for this. I asked people why they chose the University of Guelph, and here are my favorite responses. The quality of the programs, the chance to get into OVC one day, the food, the homey feeling of campus, and lastly, the guide puppies in training. Although the puppies and the smiles they inspire have been an incredible part of being a student here, the answer of the homey feeling of campus is what stands out to me the most. The first time that I stepped foot on this campus was actually the day that I moved into Prairie Hall. Of course, not with the rest of the Prairie kids. It took one walk to Johnston Green for me to feel at home and confident that this place was going to be perfect. Other memories I have that have helped reinforce the feeling of home that I know I'm going to take with me and keep for a very long time are the leaves on Johnston Green turning magnificent shades of orange and red in the fall. Orientation week, both as new students and as orientation volunteers, and winding our toys for pep rally, how could we forget that? Almost always having a door held open as you're walking through it, and painting the cannon. And lastly, enjoying a Bob's dog while listening to Bob's unique musical tastes. Most of these things, again, are because of the people on this campus. Whether it was having my never-ending questions about Guelph and the university answered by orientation volunteers that first week, or always having a smile and a wave from Bob when you walk by, or knowing that there's going to be a friendly face no matter where you go here, it's been the people that have made this experience one to remember. My dad always told me that you can't have the good without the not so good. So here are things that I'm not sure I'm going to miss necessarily, but they've made me the student I am today. Late nights of essay writing, sometimes accompanied by friends who were starting and submitting equally as late as I was. Spending approximately 10 minutes every day being the person that holds open the door for everyone else to go through. Sometimes when it's way too awkward and you know they're too far away, but you're going to hold it open anyways because it's Guelph. The wind blowing into my face no matter what way I'm walking. And lastly, the bus routes changing every fall of my undergrad. As I near the end of my time with you this evening, I want to share a few more messages. The first is from one of the professors I've had almost every year since my first year, actually. Dr. Kirby Calvert has said to our class many times, "Don't let school interfere with your learning." It's taken me a while to fully understand that phrase for really what it is. In action, that saying is us having conversations with people, learning their stories, and asking questions. It's been choosing new adventures for ourselves outside of the classroom here. While I'm thankful to be receiving that coveted and expensive piece of paper in a few months, the most important part of this journey has actually been the people that I've met and the new things that they've taught me. The final message I have for you is one that has inspired me to take meaningful risks, like applying to be the last lecturer in the first place. I think the most practical skill in university that I've learned has been that of multitasking, which I use regularly as I write my essays and watch Netflix. So recently I was writing one of my last papers of my undergrad, and I was watching the movie I Feel Pretty with Amy Schumer. I ask that you not judge that movie choice. I promise it's good. In the movie, her coworker is trying to force her to be confident in herself, to have just a moment of blind confidence and do the thing that needs to be done. And he says to her, "Repeat after me. I am blonde, I am bold, and I can do this." Well, we may not all be blonde. We may not always feel bold. I assure you, we most certainly can do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Jaden. If anyone's wondering, one of those puppies is actually here because it's also their last lecture. I think they're at the back. They're a little bit bigger. So many wonderful memories made and more to come. So our next lecturer is our faculty last lecturer, and as some of you may recall, as graduating students, you were invited to vote for the person, the faculty member that you wanted to hear from one more time. And while only one faculty is joining us on stage today, I did want to share with you the list of those who were voted in alongside this person in the top 10 They represent 4 of our 7 colleges and a range of academic disciplines, and I think they just deserve a little bit of recognition. So they are Dr. Deanna Benet-Cook from Sociology and Anthropology, Dr. Andy Robinson from Animal Biosciences, Dr. Stefan Grather from Molecular and Cellular Biology, Dr. Tricia Van Ryn from Family Relations and Applied Nutrition, Dr. Patrick Parnaby from Sociology and Anthropology, Dr. Alex Smith from Integrative Biology, Dr. Neil McCluskey from Biomedical Sciences, 2 more, Dr. Glenn Pyle, also from Biomedical Sciences, and Dr. Kim Wilson from Family Relations and Applied Nutrition. Congratulations to all those faculty members. As those you've all experienced, we have some pretty fantastic people at the front of the classroom around here. And one of them is about to come up on stage. So this year's last lecture is extra special to me because they teach in a really small program, but it's obvious that they have a very big impact. They teach across the disciplines, even though they're program specific. So this is an award-winning lecturer. They're from the School of Languages and Literature. Thank you. At least one of your students is here. I think more than that are there. And they've been known, and this is very interesting because they've been in this role before. So in the 11 years that we've been asking for you to vote on your faculty last lecturer, only once has somebody been voted in twice until this year. And so when they were here a couple years ago, a student commented that they convince you that boring things are cool. And this year, a student commented that they make things you think should be boring are cool. So there's some consistency there. Fortunately for us, they've promised to share something interesting, but I feel like whatever it is, it'll be cool. It's with great pleasure that I invite to the stage your faculty last lecturer, Dr. John Walsh.
I do need the Kleenex. I'm still thinking about your dad. He's okay? Oh, thank heavens. I always think cool things are rather boring. Jaden, thank you for your very thoughtful, inspirational remarks. It really is a privilege for me to follow you to this podium. Good evening, late afternoon. My name is John Walsh, and it truly is my pleasure to accept the role of your faculty speaker at the last lecture for 2019. You know I'm a whiz with technology. Should have had one of the scientists up here. All right, here we go. For my Latin and classics students, salvete omnes. And, wait a minute, where are we? And welcome to the Lectio Ultima for the Roman year 2772. There are 5 people in this room that know why that's funny. An event like this, as the provost mentioned, naturally provokes us to a certain measure of reflection. And as I join you in that exercise, I certainly have some people to thank. People who have made it possible for me to be here today as the faculty speaker. Dr. Yates, our provost and vice president, Dr. Samantha Brennan, dean of the College of Arts, Dr. Margot Irvine, and Dr. Sandra Parmigiani, directors of the School of Language and Literatures. I offer you my most sincere appreciation and thanks for this opportunity. To the organizers of this evening's event, Jenna, she's there somewhere, Jenna Easter, Jay Rojas and Shannon Thibodeau, your hard work and dedication maintain the tradition of the last lecture, and for that we're all very grateful. It's a great event, it's full of fun and whimsy. You can see I'm in the spirit of things. Notice, indelicately my pocket square is thrown in, I eschew the rather sort of more formal look. I'm in the mood tonight. And so, having thanked everyone, now I turn to you, graduating class of 2019. Well, some of you anyway. Let's have a good look at you. To you, the students of the graduating class of 2019, who have voted me this deeply meaningful honor, who've bestowed the enormous privilege of delivering this address upon me, I say to you now with complete sincerity, I hope you will exercise better judgment and discretion in decision-making in the future. News of my selection was met with decidedly mixed reactions. Some were evidently pleased, others less so. The campus police arrived, order was restored, and then I sat down with Griff to seek, as always, his wise counsel as I prepared for this talk. As we often do, we reminisce together, recalling fondly the last 4, 5, Rachel Schenk-Martin, 6 years, the tenure of your study here. And Griff and I slipped into a kind of wistful nostalgia. But if you, students of this class, are sitting here in this hall expecting me to shower you with saccharine praise, you'll be sorely disappointed. Treacle isn't on the menu tonight, my friends. That's what convocation is for. Very distinguished people will line up to do that for you. You haven't come here to watch old Walsh, your worthy adversary of 4, 5, some 6 years, lose his composure as he gushes forth about how proud he is of you, moistening his cheeks, as he tells you that watching you grow and develop as scholars and people has filled his heart with warmth and joy. That would be unbecoming. Don't worry, I won't make this emotionally awkward for either of us. I wouldn't, for example, even dream of telling you that standing here now in War Memorial Hall, by your command, on ground consecrated by the sacrifice of Guelph students and alumni whose names are inscribed on bronze tablets at the back of this hall, that to stand here is an honor for which I will never fully be worthy, but one that, out of my esteem for you, I nonetheless humbly accept. That would be awkward. Thank goodness, for those of you who know me, I'm not prone to this sort of nostalgic sentimentality. If I were, I might even download on my cell phone, and you know I'm lying when I say I can do that. Let me rephrase that. I might have someone else download on my cell phone for me, and then endure them making fun of me afterwards. Thank you, Jenna Easter. If I were such a sentimentalist, I might even download on my cell phone some cloying and overly sentimental popular song, maybe a well overplayed and totally worn out piece from the 1990s, say, and I would play it as the soundtrack to a slide montage of beautiful.
Grab you by the wrist, direct you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time.
Well, that one's good.
It's something unpredictable, but in
Look,
the
I have
end
knees
it's
and elbows.
right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Bob. Bob! Gratuitous puppy.
So take
Gratuitous
the
rabbit.
photographs and still frames in your mind.
Engineers,
hanging on a shelf in good health and
That
good
takes a lot of
time.
explaining.
Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial.
That's the Reverend Dr. Walsh at work. No, I don't take money for that, so there's no financial incentive here. But if in a few years you need me and you're a Guelph alum, I'll come to you. Thank heavens we didn't do that. Instead, Griff said to me, "You should give them some advice." And I said, "You're right, Griff. Old people are great at giving advice, and young people are even better at following it." So, for reasons already explained to you better by the previous speaker, I will also offer you 3 pearls of wisdom. Judge the source. Pearl of wisdom from a man on a donkey. Number 1. Ignore this man. Ignore this man at your peril. For all intolerance, and I speak in general, for all intolerance is bred from a slithering and corrupt ideology. It crawls forth from the depths of our reptilian past. It creeps and lurks amidst primordial feculence in the ancient crevices and defiles of the human psyche. Ignorance is a fetid and croaking chorus, to be drowned out by the poetry of reason. It is the hiss of the archetypal serpent. And as we see from Turner's painting, the struggle between cultivated reason and base instinct was a principal concern of the ancient Greeks. Apollo, bottom left, the Greek god of enlightenment and intellectualism, has slain the primordial python, symbol of the irrational urge. Allegorically, reason has triumphed over brutishness. You are now called to do likewise. Your degrees have equipped you for this fight. Go then, armed with the sword of reason, and slay the serpents of bigotry and ignorance wherever you shall find them. Now, wise advice from Dr. Walsh, number 2. Read Virgil. It is from Virgil, of course, that we have our Latin motto, rerum cognoscere causas, to know the meanings of things. But these lines from Virgil's Georgics are particularly apt for our purpose this evening. But meanwhile, it flies, fugit. Time, tempus, irrecoverable flies, while captured by love, capte amore, we are drawn round again, cercum vectamur, to the one, singular. Latin scholar or not, you cannot deny the beauty of Virgil's words and thoughts. Perhaps you recognize these 2 words. Maybe you've seen them in the reverse order, tempus before fugit, giving us the English expression, time flies. Behold, the first appearance of a quintessentially overused cliche. Cliche indeed, but nevertheless, ever so true. For to me, the 43 years that have passed since this photograph was taken have, as Virgil tells us, flown by in an instant. The 1970s. Don't we look good? That's right, laugh it up, generation of the torn jeans. I have a whole nother lecture on what your genes mean. I think it's a comment on the shredded social fabric you've inherited, but I digress. I actually defend you on the issue as I defend you on all things. I'm in this photo. Can you find me? Here I am. Perhaps some of you can go a step further. Some of you may recognize the person next to me. I do. I'd know that smile, and I'd find those flashing eyes anywhere. That's my wife, Mary. And here we are, 42 years later in another photograph, almost to the day. Notice something. We're on the same sides. Always on. But she leans in a little closer these days than she used to. Virgil was right. Tempus fugit. Time does fly. But he was as right with the second line, too. Do you remember it? Singula dum capti cercum vecta mora more. Captured by love, we are drawn round again to the one. Virgil, you're right, I am. So my advice, heed the passage of time. You won't, of course. No matter. To ignore advice and learn the hard way is the prerogative of youth. Now, I offer you my third and final piece of advice. Wait, have I put the wrong picture up? Oh no. Trust me, you can trust everything I say next to the barbecue. My third and final piece of advice. And it's not advice for you at all. It's from me to me. And that's my point. You are your own advisor now. Know thyself. To quote an inscription from the ancient temple of Apollo at Delphi, to thine own self be true, if you prefer your aphorisms from modern writers like Shakespeare. Enjoy now this your carefree time, for soon, very soon, you too will feel the stealthy arrival of the immense burden of responsibility that you will owe to the next generation. Then you will stand here in my place, dispensing the wisdom of your experience. Secondly, I suppose my message here is also that we should let the people who mean the most to us know it. And so, heeding my own advice, I will revisit my opening remarks. My heart does swell with pride when I see your accomplishments. My heart does soar with delight when I think of what great things lay ahead for you. And my heart breaks with the knowledge that you will suffer setbacks and I will no longer be there to help you. But my heart is at the same time consoled, knowing that as of now, you no longer need me. Your old professor will continue to carry you in his heart, as it is now left for me to remember you and for you to forget me. But never forget the lessons you have learned in these hallowed halls. Thus I leave you now, amici mei et carissimi discipulae, my friends and my dearest students, caemoi filtatoi griffoi, and my cherished griffins. I leave you now with these parting words, and I invoke Caesar himself on your behalf. Venistis, you have come. Vidistis, you have seen. Vicistis, you have conquered. The sun now sets on our time together. Valete omnes, farewell all, and thank you, my friends.
Thanks, John. I am always amazed at, it just doesn't matter what discipline the faculty member comes from. They're always able to bring in what they know and love, the thing that they teach you every day, blend it so seamlessly into the lessons of life. So thank you. Thank you also for capturing so beautifully the way many of us feel about all of you and the pride that we feel in being a part of your journey and the excitement we have for you. And also, time does fly, and we're nearing the end. We have one lecture to go. I know some of you have a class, so if you do need to leave, you can sneak out the side. And again, when we're done with this lecture, you might smell the food actually wafting up from downstairs, and we hope you join us for a little bit more time together. So this year's last lecture, our alumna lecturer, enjoyed Guelph so much she did 2 degrees here. She did her first undergrad, graduating in 2005, and then she did what many students come to Guelph for. Jaden even mentioned this. She crossed the street and went to OVC, where she studied for her doctorate in veterinary medicine. And she's now a veterinarian who has a real passion for raising awareness about the connection between humans and animal health and animal welfare. Over the last 15 years, she's amassed a variety of international experiences across the globe working on things just like that. And in 2014, she founded, along with Dr. William Kresh, an organization called Veterinarians International. And VI is a global network of veterinarians, animal health care advocates, and community leaders that connect communities in need with veterinary training, expertise, and resources. And just in case she's not busy enough, she also practices emergency veterinary medicine in numerous specialty hospitals across New York. And because everyone needs a hobby, she is an avid oyster farmer in her spare time. I know, right? Just the amazing things that one can learn to do. So without further ado, your alumna last lecturer, Dr. Scarlett Magda.
I'm still crying from Dr. Walsh. It was 2007, on a hot June night, just past midnight in Lampang, Thailand. I had just finished entering the data from my day's observations from my elephant saddle research project. I was exhausted. I stepped outside and walked down the path as I normally do. But I heard a chain drag on the floor. I looked up and saw 2 giant tusks kissing the ground. He stood as still as a statue. Thick, long legs, like tree trunks, holding up 10,000 pounds of flesh and bone, were there, planted before me. We were both frightened. He, likely because his path to freedom may have just ended, and I, fearful of being trampled. His ears were facing forward. I was fearful he would charge, But then a couple thoughts entered into my mind. If I remain calm, emit compassion, and slowly back down, I should be okay. I then empathize with his soul. What a life he must have had, being taken away from his mother at the tender age of 2 and put into a life under human control and command. I felt so bad for this animal. He was actually able to break free from his chains and escape. But escape to where? To what future? I was compelled to send this elephant love and peace, knowing his future was grim. I bowed my head, pressed my hands together, and said namaste. I stood there and waited for him to depart. I heard his chain fading off in the distance. I opened my eyes and he was gone into the darkness. My journey in global health started here while I was a third-year biology student at this incredible institution. A year when I broke free from the chains, what then felt like painstaking courses like calculus and physics, to immerse myself in subjects that I was truly passionate about, like the natural history of Ontario, critical thinking, and equine management. The first 2 years here were just brutal. I felt like a total failure, like I didn't belong. A failure because I didn't do so great on the MCAT. Yeah, we needed it back then. And because I failed to get into vet school, my life's dream. I escaped to LA at the time that I received the news. I was looking for a backup plan in case my dream to be a vet didn't come true. Well, I didn't exactly succeed at finding that backup plan. All I found in LA was a bunch of lost souls that were way too concerned about their appearance and not much else. I felt even more lost. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. And it was then that I had the great fortune of having an influential meeting on my life's trajectory. I met Lord Robin Russell, one of the former trustees of the UK charity Elephant Family. He sat me down and explained the Asian elephant crisis to me, a situation where elephants in the wild are at war with humans every single day because of habitat loss and destruction. 80% of their habitat is gone, they have nowhere to go. In addition, elephants in captivity are not better off. The majority of them are on short chains, isolated from one another for most of the day. I knew at that moment that I had a calling to devote my career and inspirations to this cause. The last words Robin said to me were, "Scarlett, if you go into this world, you are going up against a tsunami." Those words struck a chord in me that continue to resonate in my soul today. Compels me to keep going. I was then ready to return to Guelph in my final year and give it my all. Of all the stories that I have, there's so many to choose from, but I chose to pick these two because I wanted to pass along what has been so important in my life. First, you have to find what you are passionate about. Once you do that, the rest will flow. It is that passion that will drive you through the difficult times, the times when you think things just can't get any worse. The second is to realize that when you fail at something, it is not actually failure. It is the universe redirecting you to go in a different path. The great educator and author Kent M. Keith once wrote, "The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway." Each of you have tools to build your life. You are graduating from one of the finest institutions in the world. Give yourselves a round of applause. Never forget it. But in addition to a great education and being inspired, you have to be willing to do the work. You have to work so hard that the concept of time ceases to exist. People wonder, how am I able to travel all the time, have interesting programs all over the world, and have a busy social calendar? Well, my secret is I also work hard as a freelance emergency veterinarian where I'm in charge of my schedule. This past Friday night, it was 7 p.m. I was so proud of myself for discharging 75% of the patients in the ICU. I finally sat down to have a cup of tea when, boom, in comes the hit-by car with the head trauma trailing slowly behind. I triaged the hit-by car, gave some stabilization orders, and bolted into the pharmacy when I see my nurse holding a goose under her right arm. I then proceed to take one of the biggest slides of my life, and this is when my figure skating skills came into great use. I asked, "Why is there shit on the pharmacy floor?" "I'm so sorry, Dr. Magda, it was the goose," as she's staring up with her sad eyes. I didn't leave the hospital until midnight, but we all had a good laugh. It was that much-needed comic relief that enabled me to get through that 15-hour shift. I was then able to spend the next 3 days focusing on Vets International. It all sounds crazy, I know, but this is how I'm able to do what I'm inspired to do. In exchange, I wake up each day with a heart full of love and gratitude, and I try and live each and every day as if it's my last. As you guys leave the comforts of this campus, you will be offered jobs. I implore you not to take a job just to build your resume. Build a job to feed your soul and build your life. President Lincoln once said, "It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years." The last story I want to share with you is about manifestation. This is when you envision something, believe in it, and you know it to be true. While I was a student here, I was fortunate to be on the board of Vets Without Borders Canada, which was actually founded here at Guelph in 2005. I learned a ton about global health and organizational management. I was mostly involved in strategic planning and development. I then moved to the US to start a small animal medicine and surgery internship when I started wondering what was that country doing in global health. I learned that there actually wasn't a platform to provide veterinary care and training to remote communities for all animals and also have animal welfare built into its mission. I realized this was a big opportunity, an opportunity to do something really special. I envisioned being able to help animals all over the world. I spent 6 years recruiting the top veterinarians in global health, as well as the brightest minds in business, finance, marketing, and law. And in 2014, I launched Veterinarians International with world-renowned wildlife vet, Dr. William Koresh. VI will now be entering its 5th year this September, where some of our accomplishments include supporting the vaccinations of over 13,000 dogs, cats, and elephants against rabies, one of the deadliest viruses known to man. We provide an emergency response vehicle for animals and natural disasters in Chile. We support the veterinary needs of 52 rescued chimps from the illegal pet and wildlife trade. These chimps witness their families murdered so that they can be sold into the pet trade or eaten for meat. We provide access to veterinary care and training and with health kits to over 300 families in Kenya and Haiti who depend on their goats and donkeys to survive. In the community that we work in Kenya, a woman will spend between 6 and 8 hours just to get water. She can, and this is every day, she can only carry 20 liters, but a donkey can carry 80, thanks to the comfortable harnesses we're able to provide them. Our Asian Elephant Health and Welfare Program provides veterinary care to 200 elephants in the Surin Elephant Kingdom, a place where elephants are chained for 20 hours on average with their front feet shackled. We've made partnerships with the Thai government, Zoological Parks Organization, the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, and the Smithsonian Institute to create a welfare program that includes positive reinforcement training, and we're now raising money to build the first ever elephant bonding enclosure. It's slow, but steady progress. The image of that tusker dragging his broken chain into the darkness is one that will be buried into my mind forever. But this past January, tears rolled down my face as I was sitting by the river in Surin and saw a mom, her baby, and an auntie socializing, enjoying each other's company off-chain. They were simply just being elephants. We must have hope and have the courage to make the difference. Oh well. Look at the word impossible. Daunting, I know, right? Audrey Hepburn had the vision to look at it in a different way. I'm possible. Nothing is impossible because I'm possible. Think it, dream it, live it. Follow your heart, do what you love, open yourself up fully. Break those chains. Because where there is darkness, there is light. Be the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. There's so many wonderful messages in what you've said, what our other lecturers have said, and I'm trying to find which one, like there's just so many that really resonate with the stage that you're at as you finish your last classes, move into the exam period, and into whatever's next for you beyond these campus borders. I really like the idea that I'm possible, and that so are you. And I'm sure many times along this journey, things have felt impossible. And for some of you right now, you're probably staring down the next few weeks and going, Remember what Jaden said, you got this. You may not be blonde, but you are bold, and it is possible. There's another quote that comes to mind that's often attributed to Nelson Mandela. Correctly or not, I don't know. I have not done my research. It only seems impossible until it is done. And you're this close. So lean in a little bit longer on your support system, on your knowledge, on everything we've tried to create space for you to own, because we know you've got this. And we'll see you in June for convocation or whenever you want to come back. Please don't be shy. We do like visits. The campus will still be here and you'll always be a Griffin. So if you don't have class, well, if you do, you're late. But if you don't, or you're just choosing a later arrival time, we hope to see you downstairs in the next few minutes. Thank you so much for taking the time to celebrate yourselves and each other.